Part 2, Journey, Chapter 5, June 1984. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts. We will begin our descent to the Palam Airport in New Delhi shortly. Thank you. My stomach tightened as the airplane descended. So far, the flight had been unbearable, and as the plane now began its landing, my impatience grew. Massaging the back of my stiff neck didn't do much for the discomfort. It must have been over 16 hours since we'd departed. Thankfully, I had a window seat with no one beside me. The flight wasn't as packed as I had feared it would be. Shit, I hate planes. Why did I have to come all this way? I complained as I stretched out my arms. The answer, however, was resting on my lap. Oops, sorry, Daddy. I didn't mean to swear again. I can't wait to get off this plane. You know how My voice trailed off. I realized that I wasn't speaking to a real person. Instead, I was speaking to a box of ashes. It had been a painful experience collecting his urn from the funeral home. My mother's strong facade had fallen apart as soon as she laid eyes upon the urn. Soon after, both my sister and my mother had become faint, and so, of course, swallowing my emotions, I stepped forward and completed the formalities. So here you have Isha on a flight going to India, and the urn is a strong symbol in the text. It is not only a symbol, but it is a motif, which is a recurring idea throughout the text, and the urn itself is linked to many themes: guilt and remorse, loss, the impact of death, the impact of culture, the impact of religion, and also identity, which is a very strong theme. Moving on. Now, however, as I held my father's urn, I couldn't help but remember a man who had chased after me during my toddler days, a man who had picked me up and carried me on his shoulders when I couldn't walk any further. A man who was very much alive and excited for life and his children. That man was now nothing more than ashes, tied in a bag, secured in a wooden box, and placed in a suede emerald sack. You did love us, right, Daddy? But then, why did you lie all those years? And especially when you knew I had found that photo, why didn't you say anything then? It would have changed things, changed the way I ended things. A sea of lights lit up the late-night cityscape below as the plane glided towards the runway. The crowded streets became more visible. The plane gave a bit of a jolt as it touched down on the tarmac. Just as it came to a stop, I took a deep breath. Here we go. As soon as I stepped off the plane, I was engulfed in thick smog that carried a rank smell as if there were month-old dirty socks in every pocket of Delhi. If that wasn't bad enough, the heat was excruciating. It was like walking into an oven. Well, this is going to take some getting used to, I thought as I made my way towards the baggage collection area. While collecting my bags, I noticed that I was being stared at quite a bit. Walking towards the exit, I realized I was still drawing a lot of attention. I usually am quite pleased to attract attention, but the constant stares were admittedly a bit unnerving. I looked down, trying to see if there was something wrong with my clothes or something was out of place. But there wasn't, so I just moved on. I desperately hoped my ride was waiting for me. Once outside, I scanned the curious faces in the crowded, gated area through which all arrivals had to pass after collecting their bags. It was mostly men in the crowd. I could barely spot any women. They were shouting out names, smiling and waving at their relatives. Eventually, my gaze landed on a short, skinny, dark-complexioned man with large round eyes. He was holding a sign that read, Isha Kar Sidhu, Canada. Car, great. I'm not even out of the airport yet, and they're already turning me into a full fledged Sikh, Indian, whatever. I walked up to the man with the sign, and he looked relieved that he had finally found me. I smiled and offered my hand. Hi, I'm Isha, just simply Isha, not Isha, but like the sound of an A. Okay, Esha. And please, no car, okay? He eyed, he eyed my offered hand nervously, simply nodded, and said, Hello, ma'am. I am Shotu, the family driver. Shotu, is that your full name? I asked in Punjabi as I took my hand back. As expected, he didn't speak English. No, ma'am. It is Chandra. Uh, I'm so sorry that I'm messing up this name, but I'm going to attempt it. Chandrasekhar Singh. Everybody calls me Shotu. Well, because as you can see, I am not so very tall. It is since childhood, just Shotu, he said, smiling, clearly pleased that I had taken interest in his name. I followed him to a medium-sized white car in the airport parking lot. The stares from passers-by still had not ceased. So, Shotu, why is it that wherever I pass, people are staring at me? Shoto found this funny. Oh, ma'am, do not worry too much about it. You are a very fair-looking young woman. It is only normal that they will stare at a foreigner such as yourself. I see. So, where's the family? I mean, I thought Ekant would come to collect me. Sir was busy with business, so he sent me to receive you. The family is eagerly awaiting your arrival at home. It is the first time we are having a foreign guest visit. Everyone is very excited to see you, but also very sad to hear about your father. Shota lowered his gaze to the urn held tightly in my hands. Yeah, me too, I sighed as I climbed into the back seat and he loaded up my baggage. The drive to the house didn't take very long. After the time it had taken to get through customs, collect my bags, and exit the airport, it had gotten pretty late, almost midnight. Therefore, Shoto explained the streets now were clear for a smooth traffic-free drive. I rolled down my window, hoping to feel a breeze. The humidity was making my hair frizz, so I tied it back. The last thing I should do is show up looking like a crazy bag lady. I straightened my clothes and tried to make myself look presentable. I did the best I could, from the back seat of the car and in such poor light. A spritz of perfume and the cool feel of lotion on my arms and face was incredibly refreshing, especially in this smoggy atmosphere. Besides the smog, New Delhi didn't appear to be so bad. It was quite dark, but the roads were paved and there were traffic lights, even though I realized my driver wasn't exactly paying any attention to them or to the speed limit, if there was any. As yet, I hadn't seen a sign with a limit on it. That, ma'am, is India Gate. Many foreigners come here to take pictures of it. Shoto pointed towards a massive arch-like monument that had been erected in a spacious road crossing. It really did look like a gate, but it was enormous. It was lit up in the dead of night, such a simple structure, yet so beautiful. What's this gate for, Shoto? I asked, curious to know why anyone would want to build a gate as a monument. It is actually a war memorial for the Indians who gave their life in the First World War and the Afghan wars. It is a good thing to remember those who have died to protect others. It's beautiful, I replied as it fell behind us in the distance. A few more minutes passed, then we pulled into a different neighborhood. So, guys, I'd like to go back to where he says, um, it is a good thing to remember those who have died to protect us. this is literally foreshadowing of significant events that will happen later on in the text. And the idea of, the persistence of the past, the theme, that resonates so much in that one sentence. It's beautiful, I replied as it fell behind us in the distance. A few more minutes passed, then we pulled into a different neighborhood. Each house had a gate in front, and each was different from the next in both size and shape, but it was difficult to see them properly in the dark. The bright city lights had disappeared, and right now, the only source of light was the moon. Shoto stopped in front of a double gate and honked the horn until there was movement behind it, and eventually it swung open. Once in the courtyard, he cut the engine. Slowly climbing out of the car, I examined my surroundings. It was an open courtyard with a balcony running all the way around the second floor of the house. The ground was cement, as were the walls. There was a combination of screen doors and wooden doors on every side, leading to what I assumed were bedrooms and sitting areas. Right by the front gate, however, a strange dark shadow caught my eye. As I looked closer, I realized it was a cow. Why was there a cow in the courtyard of the house? Show two, you have returned safely. A slightly overweight old woman of medium height was slowly making her way through one of the doors to the right. She was wrapped in a white shawl that she had also draped over her head. She had half moon spectacles on, but her extremely fair complexion was visible underneath. Even in the dark,